Well, good morning. The time being 9 a.m, I declare open the general meeting for the Gladstone Regional Council for Tuesday, the 7th of April, 2026. The first item on the agenda is apologies, and all councillors are present. Obviously, I am teamsing in this morning. I'm teamsing in from Biloela as I have a funeral to attend this morning at about 11 a.m. Next item on the agenda is messages of condolence. Councillors, do we have any messages of condolence? No messages of condolence. We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is prior notifications of conflicts of interest. Shelley or Tanya?
No notifications, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mr Mayor, I may have a conflict of interest on item 4.4, the naming right infrastructure in the name Allen. Just given some consideration that over the weekend, I've had a business relationship with what you call the Allen boys. I have entered into a building contract with a member of the Allen family, and we've had a long association with the Allens. It makes me more qualified to give insight to that. But I think there is a perceived conflict of interest that I'd like to put to the boardroom to see whether they agree I have a conflict of interest.
Thank you. I'll hand over to councillors. I'll just highlight this. When the content is maximised, I lose the boardroom. There we are, we're back. Any questions for Councillor Cameron? Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Is it Deputy Mayor? Yes.
No, I think Tanya wants to say something. Is that okay? Councillor Davis? Yeah.
Sorry, I was just going to clarify, councillors. Councillor Cameron, that decision is yours as to whether you've got the conflict of interest. From what you're saying, it sounds like you are declaring a conflict of interest. Is that correct?
I'll say that again.
Yeah, legislation has just changed again, which is always helpful.
Yes, so it's a declarable conflict of interest,
okay,
if you believe you have. And then if you believe you have that conflict of interest, then council can decide if you can remain in the room and vote or whether you should leave. All
right, well, I'll declare that now and leave that to the board.
And you would like to remain in the room?
I would like to remain in the room. Just to add too, I mean, the Allens have a far reach to this community. There's probably not too many people that haven't had an association with them one way or the other. Just leave that as a footnote. Thank you.
Thank you. Was that Councillor Davis that had a question there?
Yeah, thank you, Mr Mayor. Well, if Councillor Cameron's declaring that, I probably should too, because I have had a long relationship with the Allens over the years of my, working career, very closely with the Allens and grown up with the Allens. So I don't feel that Councillor Cameron's got one. It is a far reach with some of the old local families, and I'm happy to stay in the room and vote. And I think Councillor Cameron, doesn't really have a conflict, and I'm happy for him to stay in the room. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any further comments or questions, councillors? Thank you, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah. Sorry, I wanted to just check with Tanya, because what Councillor Cameron's just mentioned, it's a commercial contract that it's just been signed on the weekend. So can you give us a bit more commentary on that? Because a long association with someone, as in family relations or friendship, is one thing, but a commercial contract is a different thing.
I think it generally comes down to the decision that we're all making, and what we're making, the nature of the decision. I don't believe that Councillor Cameron stands to gain any financial benefit from the decision we're making. We're talking about adding a name for naming infrastructure. So
that's fine. Yeah. That's not a problem.
If
just wanted to just make sure that that's mentioned, because it's not the same having a family connection than to have business dealings with. So I'm happy to
If we could just confirm,
are
Councillor
you
Davis,
moving?
you're not declaring a conflict of interest.
Well, I mean, it's just a personal working relationship, like I don't have any business, but I mean, you know, I've grown up with the Allens. I think like all of us have probably touched, you know, had some sort of relationship with them over the years. So I don't personally think I have a conflict just because I've worked with them over the years and known the family since, you know, growing up.
Yeah.
So based on that, I'm happy to support that Councillor Cameron stays in the room.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor moved, seconded by Councillor Holzheimer. Any further comments or questions? Was that right, Councillor? Yes. Any further comments or questions? Put the motion. All in favour, Councillor Cameron remain in the room. Motion's carried. Thank you, Councillor Cameron. And as Tanya said, it is the naming of infrastructure, and it's appropriate when we get to that point. I'll talk more about it, obviously, then.
Mr. Mayor,
okay, the next item on the...
May I just
Yes,
also
Deputy.
suggest that we might, considering the changes in legislation recently too, that we might have a bit of a discussion in the future about the standing conflict of interest? That'd be great. Thank you.
Yeah. Not a bad idea, Tanya. Maybe if we get your team to organise that, because the legislation has changed again. Those who attended the Civic Leaders Summit just recently in Brisbane would have been given an update, but it'd be good to have that similar update for all councillors. The next item on the agenda is the Mayor's statement on current issues, and there was a lot of events leading up to Easter, but of course Easter in Gladstone is our single largest, biggest event for the year, and all centres around the Gladstone Harbour Festival, Brisbane to Gladstone Village, the events at the Yacht Club right around the city, and of course the 78th Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race, which was won this year by Curb, who took out the Courier Cup. But the line honours, of course, went to Wild Thing, and what a fantastic race it was. And I thank all councillors for being involved and supporting the 78th Brisbane to Gladstone Yacht Race. Particularly the yachties do very much, as having done the race myself, appreciate the medallion and the carton of beer that we deliver as tradition in the Gladstone region, as we have for many years. And it is great to see that tradition continue, and I thank all councillors who participated in that. And then, of course, for the trophy presentation, the Governor of Queensland, the Honourable Jeanette Young, joined us for the trophy presentation, as well as attended the festival finale for the Gladstone Harbour Festival on Sunday night, and spoke there at the festival, and also met with the amazing volunteers, not just from the festival, but some other local volunteers in our community, including volunteers from Zonta, including volunteers from the CWA, and communities of Gladstone supporting youth, and Oil Station Fly-In, and some fantastic local volunteers from Bracewell Way in Mr. and Mrs. Brady. It was fantastic then to take the Governor to the Botanic Gardens and meet with some of our local elders, and then to Tannum Sands to meet with our youth council to hear more about some of the amazing initiatives our youth council are taking, and meet with them. And I'm sure they would very much appreciate the opportunity to meet with the Governor. The Governor remains in Gladstone today and is visiting the Gladstone Hospital, then heading to Yeppoon for a civic reception there, and then back to Gladstone tonight before departing tomorrow. So we do thank the Governor for spending three nights here in Gladstone, and particularly visiting our volunteers and our local community representatives and local community champions as well. So I'll leave that as the Mayor's statement, other than to say we have two big events coming up. After those, we have, of course, the Miriamvale Rodeo happening on Saturday, the 11th of April, and we have the Yabobo Yabobo Music Camp Out, change the name, started today and goes through to the 12th of April as well in the beautiful Boyne Valley. And I have no doubt that there was a few other events that happened before Easter that councillors can talk about during general business as well. I'll move to the next item on the agenda, please, to the confirmation of the minutes of the 17th of March. If I could get a mover for those, thanks. I'll just have to minimise my content every time this happens. And a mover for the minutes, please.
So moved.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill, and a seconder.
Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. My computer's frozen, which is always helpful. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you, councillors. We'll move to the next item on the agenda now, which is the deputations. We have no deputations, so we'll move to our officers' reports. And the first officer's report is G4.1, the Wooderston Solar Farm Community Benefit Agreement, and I'll hand over to the Manager of Economic Development, Christy Marks. Thank you, Christy. And I'll welcome Erickson to the table as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Councillors, good morning. Through the chair, this report is being presented on behalf of the General Manager of People and Strategy, Carly Quinn, who is currently on leave, and has been prepared by Council's Strategic Project Specialist, Erickson Noakes, alongside me today. This item relates specifically to Council's consideration of a community benefit agreement for the proposed Woodison Solar Farm at Mount Alma, and represents the second community benefit agreement brought to Council under Queensland's new Renewable Energy Planning Framework and Council's Renewable Energy Community Benefits Sharing Policy adopted in October last year. This report reflects extensive work by the Economic Development team to negotiate with the proponent, Central Queensland Power, alongside our other internal Council Department team members, and importantly, on behalf of the community, a policy-aligned agreement that secures benefit for the region should the Woodison Solar Project proceed. The level of community interest, alongside the complexity associated with large-scale renewable energy projects, particularly as planning processes and responsibilities have changed, remains high. As you are aware, recent changes to Queensland's planning legislation have shifted the approval authority for large-scale renewable energy projects from local government to the state. Under this framework, proponents are required to complete a social impact assessment and, using those findings, negotiate a community benefit agreement with the relevant local council before a development application can be lodged with the State Assessment Referral Agency. In this case, officers are satisfied that the proposed agreement meets the minimum expectations set out in Council's policy with no compromises made. It's informed by the social impact assessment. It includes both monetary contributions and a proponent-delivered community benefit sharing program targeted to those impacted communities, and includes safeguards around timing, cost recovery, review provisions, and accountability. As with previous items, supporting the community benefit agreement enables the proponent to continue through the state's development assessment process. It does not indicate that Council supports the project, nor does it influence or predetermine the state government's decision on whether the project proceeds. The recommendation today before Council is to authorise the Chief Executive Officer to finalise and execute the community benefit agreement, and officers are available to respond to Councillors' questions. Thank you.
There it is too. 2026 still muting. Deputy Mayor, then Councillor Holzheimer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, Christy and Erickson, for this and the way the report's presented as well. Makes it really clear as to where the agreements match our policy, and including the additional benefits. So that's great. Thank you. So I'll be very happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Holzheimer, were you having a question, or were you wanting to second or move?
Question and happy to second.
Okay, thank you. That makes it easier. Thank you. I'll take your seconder, and then your question, please.
I'm obviously
Councillor Churchill.
Beautiful. Happy to support, more than happy. I think it's a great policy and the work you guys are doing. I was just wanting to consider this for my own learning, what it looks like when and if we're fortunate enough to get multiple proponents actually delivering. How do we sit with that when let's say it all happens at once? God forbid, and the impact for that social impact as well, if we experience that. I understand there's the review process as well. Is that when that kicks in? Can you talk me through that a little bit?
Thanks. So the review process that we speak about is to the actual agreement itself. I suppose if I can come back to the cumulative impact piece, that's definitely a very firm conversation we continue to have with proponents, and is really thoroughly identified in that social impact assessment. And so, for example, if I look at housing and workforce, we are fortunate that we have village accommodation that exists, particularly very close to this proposed project, but also we really double down on the, focus of local content with the proponent, and specifically around its use of contractors that are already within the local vicinity of the Gladstone region, and making sure that they are really doubling down on their local content as much as they possibly can as well.
Okay, beautiful.
Yeah.
I think the next part of my question is about what's next for us as councillors after we actually start seeing some of this funding come through, which obviously isn't today, tomorrow, that sort of thing. So what does that look like for us, for what's next, for that vision, for the use of that funding, that sort of thing as well?
It's a really good question, and it's certainly something that we're actively looking at from a strategic perspective within our team. To your point, Councillor, the funding is not something that is coming through thick and fast right now. We need to be able to make sure that when we get to a point of having those funds being held, we truly understand what the best governance, what the best process, and what the best impact is actually going to be with those funds, because we don't have crystal balls. We don't know whether these projects are going to continue to proceed. It could be 12 months, it could be 18 months, it could be 4 years between now and when we actually have those funds pooled to be able to do something strategic with those legacy benefits that this council has made sure it's intended to be for. As you are aware, we are currently recruiting a role at the moment for Principal Industry Specialist, whose sole role is actively working towards the negotiation of these community benefit agreements, as this work has been absorbed within our small but mighty economic development team as is. So that will be a critical part of what that new role is going to be able to do, to understand what that governance looks like, to be able to spend the funds once we have them. And that will be a series of many, many conversations with this boardroom in due course.
Beautiful. And then after that, then that's when the public, the community will actually understand about what that actually looks like for them and the benefit to them.
That's right. That is the long-term strategic funds. In addition to that, when these projects come into play, that community benefit program that is designed to really support those localised communities that are identified as impacted as part of those individual projects, that will be a proponent-led program as well. So there will definitely be benefits seen directly by those communities as well.
Beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah. Is there anything else you wanted to add to
Thank
that?
you. Thank you. I think you've answered probably questions for a few of us there. Over to you, Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks very much for that, Mayor Matt. Comment and then question. Just in relation to discussions that I've had with some colleagues in local government in other states, I'm happy to support the motion. I think local government is still continuing across the nation to try and grapple with this whole renewable energy sphere and the benefit coming back to community. And I think we've been extremely proactive to get the policy in place and then to be able to tie it down. But the question that I'm being asked from people in the community, and I make reference to your point on page 8, if you wouldn't mind, where you indicated alternative community benefit arrangements were originally proposed, however, declined as the conditions attached did not sufficiently align with our policy, that's our policy, and or constrained by Council's policy objective. So the question that I'm asking on behalf of the people is that there is plenty of flexibility for, and in this circumstance, CQ Power, but any of the proponents going forward to also have a program of funding for the local community outside the ambit of our policy. Right, so we have our policy in place and we've done the right thing, and I'm happy to support the motion, but at the same time just want to make sure it's on record that it's clearly understood that these proponents should, as good corporate citizens, still be able to and be willing to go outside the ambit of the policy, provided that they conform with our policy. Is that the case? I'm getting nods, but I value, yeah, point of order.
Councillor Churchill, I think what you're saying It's actually already in the policy. So the policy calls for some sort of community fund external to the contributions to council.
I agree with you.
It doesn't set an amount, but
No, it
yeah,
doesn't.
it's in there. Yeah, and definitely, I guess, is the.
I'm aware of the policy, you're aware
yeah.
of the policy, we're aware of the policy, the proponents are aware of the policy, but the community in that particular area need to understand the implications, or more so, the parameters within that policy, so that it's not just council's got a policy and they've got to conform with that. I think we need to be sharing that message to make sure that the community understands that they themselves can be an advocate for their community, to encourage these proponents to have their own centralised one, as long as there's still conformity and compliance with our policy. A lot of head nodding. But I agree, but it's all in the message.
Absolutely spot on,
Yeah.
councillor. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
I think, sorry, Christy, I'll let you answer, Christy, but I think the Deputy Mayor's summed it up well. That it actually says in the policy that they should have an additional community benefit agreement with the local communities, and I think you just said that as well, but I'll let you answer it.
But I want the community to know that.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, councillor. Yes, absolutely. There is a separate area of our policy which stipulates there is a proponent-driven community benefit program. Now, that is up to the proponent of how that is delivered based on the social impact assessment and the mitigation that comes with that. Now, we've been very, very clear in our policy as well, and councillors, you're obviously aware of this, and to your point, Councillor Churchill, it's important that community is very aware of this, that is shaped with community, for community, supporting those localised communities who are determined impacted in the SIA. That could be shaped to however community and proponents wish to, I suppose, funnel that, whether it's a funding program, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Even examples that we speak with proponents on is it could even be things like their employees, once they are operational, having 50 hours of community experience with the local schools. It could be a commitment for apprentices and training opportunities per year for the local community members. So it's not necessary that it's a XYZ amount per year for these communities. It genuinely is something that those proponents must work with community on. Community, I very much is welcome, of course, to work with those proponents to say this is what we would like to see as part of that community benefit program. I hope that helps.
In fact, is the intent of my question, because, and the most pertinent point that you raised is the findings that are released, or the findings that are found from the social impact assessment relevant to that local community. And there's a message in amongst that, but I understand. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Churchill. Any further questions, councillors? No further questions. I have a mover in the Deputy Mayor, second, and Councillor Holzheimer. All in favour of the recommendation? Motion is carried. Thank you, and thank you, Christy. Thank you,
Mr.
Erickson.
Thank you,
We'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is 4.2, request to adopt a planning scheme amendment roadmap 26-29. I'll hand over to the General Manager of Customer Experience, Kimberly Wilson, and welcome Matthew Kelly to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good morning, everyone. This report is asking Council to adopt the Planning Scheme Amendment Roadmap 2029. The roadmap sets out the priority amendments Council intends to progress over the coming years, based on the 10-year planning scheme review and the recent community engagement that has been undertaken. This paper is not seeking Council's approval of the detail of each amendment today. It is about the sequencing, prioritising and providing a forward programme of work
Each major amendment will still need to be developed, consulted on and brought back to Council for review and consideration as it progresses. The roadmap simply gives Council visibility over the overall pathway while preserving the opportunity to consider each major amendment on its merits at the appropriate time. This report also finalises an operational plan item for this year. And we'll take any questions.
Thank you, Kimberly. Questions to the General Manager, please. Over to you, Councillor Wagner, and then Councillor Davis.
Yeah, good morning, and thank you. Thank you for the report. This is really proactive, loving it. Just wondering, when you look at the roadmap of those their amendments, so have they just changed the time frame or their additions? Can you just sort of give us some idea of
Do you want to discuss the feedback with some changes?
Yeah, like I went through the table, but I'm looking at your actual timeline here, and I'm really excited to see biodiversity in that 26 period, I have to say. But and others also, given that we've just come back from a housing affordability conference too, the housing diversification, I think I'm really keen to chat about, you know, what we learned at that too. But yeah, so can you just tell us in this, when we look at the actual timeline, we've got the yellow, blue, green and red, what things are we seeing in there that are different?
From the original one that we presented? Yeah, there was some feedback that we got from the community. I think so Mark could tell you.
Yeah, so I think in a nutshell, obviously at the same time we were doing the engagement on the roadmap, we were also doing engagement on the tourism amendment. And we were out and about speaking to the community. One of the items that were raised was about bushfire hazard. The current bushfire overlay, as you're probably aware, does trigger a lot of dwellings, especially in the southern part of our region. And with respect to bushfire and the risk of bushfire, we felt that via the engagement and where we stood, that risk was higher at the moment than coastal. So effectively what we've done is we've moved the bushfire overlay amendment forward, which you'll see, and we've pushed the coastal amendment behind. It's probably worth, with respect to the coastal hazard amendment, that will reflect our CHAS and our mapping that already exists. So we'll still be able to do that work at the same time. It's just making sure that when we go through the state review and the public notification, we can get the bushfire amendment done sooner rather than later. The idea behind the bushfire amendment as well is we are looking at avenues to try to make dwelling houses accepted development in certain circumstances. So at the moment, effectively, if you're in the high hazard area for a dwelling, you're triggered, all bets are off, you've got to lodge an MCU, but we are looking at other avenues around how we can manage dwellings within bushfire risk. So that will be the main amendment that you would have seen with respect to bushfire and coastal.
And the flood overlay, obviously, because we had the new mapping, so this just basically allows us to incorporate that sooner.
It enhances it further.
Yeah, so at the moment we've got the existing studies that exist. We've got a consultant that's working for us now who's in the background doing all the modelling for the renewed mapping. What we have learned as part of early engagement with the state agencies is about when we start really developing the flood maps and we've kind of got a bearing on where we stand, we will do early engagement with respect to the flood mapping. That will also be about, you know, with flooding, you're either in the mapped area or you're not. So we'll be doing early engagement specifically for that piece before we even go to a formal notification as well, about educating the community around what the flood overlay looks like, why the mapping looks the way it looks, what some of the strategies will be with respect to whether you're in or you're outside of the mapping, because just because you may be in a flood area doesn't necessarily mean you have to lodge an MCU. There will be strategies that we'll look at with respect to risk.
Yeah, I think Councillor Wagner, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think you're referring to the recent update to the Agnes flood study that happened. But this is additional.
All of ours. No, I was talking to all of them, but yeah, the stuff that we've got there now, is that included in our planning scheme, or does this allow that to be put into the?
What we recently adopted from the flooding scheme was added into the planning scheme,
okay.
But we're doing additional flood
Studies,
mapping, not of the same areas, other areas that were missed, so that we can bring all those into the scheme.
I'm just wondering, with the recent event, which was a little bit different, we had in one day what we had across the region. In what we had one day in Cyclone Benny, but Benny went for 4 days. We had a lot more. But it was in pockets where we may not have seen such flash flooding, like Gladstone and Calliope, that we've seen in the past. So this recent event that we had, will that be looked at as part of this? Because it was really unusual, and there's places in there where the water level was higher than we've seen for a short burst of rain than we have in the past.
I can probably answer that one.
Yep.
The current flood studies won't be looking at that particular event. However, they are looking at, I guess, predicted rainfalls and, I guess, rain bombs and, I guess, similar occurrences occurring more often. So whilst it may not look at that event specifically, the modelling will be looking at rainfall like we have had into the future, which will, it may affect the flooding and the mapping as how it presents. So,
Yeah.
so yes.
That we had ultimately scoped, went out to market and signed someone up prior to this event
It's happening,
Yeah.
I'm just, why I ask is there's one area, well, there's a few, but there's one area in particular that, I can't remember when it was, but it was within the probably last 18 months. We had a rain event and at Kirkwood at the shopping centre there where you've got the Woolies. At that period, I remember in the far corner down below the service station, there was already cars halfway, where the water was halfway up their doors and staff were running out to try to get their cars out of the floodwaters. And obviously we let that development occur in an area where there was a dam that was filled not far away. So when we're doing all this, are we going to be considering these, the learnings from it? Because that there, we've just seen it happen again. So it's twice now in an area that is a fairly new development compared to, I suppose, some of those past approvals. And I know that's probably a little bit off track, but if we're going to do it, I'd love to see some of this input.
Well, they will be considering all events that have occurred, and including those ones in the past, and providing recommendations and updates. And
But I'm loving seeing the ones that are sort of for the 25-26 year in there. I think this is fantastic. So thank you.
thank you.
You're muted, Mr. Mayor.
Councillor Davis. Sorry,
Thank you,
Councillor
Mr.
Davis.
Yeah, I understand actually what some of Councillor Wagner's issues, but I think every time we get a flood event here in the region, it always looks different, and unfortunately, and I know the planning department will be on to all of that, and Matt and Janita and all the planning department have been working really hard on this, and so I just wanted to say thank you, because I really like the structure. I'm really impressed with it, and I'm really happy that we're doing that more major engagement in Agnes Water, which I think is really important for that side of our region. So I'm happy to move the officer's recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Davis. I have a question from the Deputy Mayor. Were you happy to second as well, or did you just have a question?
Yeah, but I think there's a few other, I had a comment, but there's a few other councillors that would like to second, if that's okay.
Okay.
Councillor
Can I
Simon?
can I grab a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor
Or
McClintock.
Councillor
And now
Patrick.
back to you, Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. It was just a quick comment, and just wanted to thank Matt and Juanita for all the work that they've been doing, and Kimberly, of course, as your team. Planning and development are one of those areas that are really difficult, and as such, they're also very difficult to explain to others because there's so many different layers to what goes into it, and we have, I guess, not directed, but suggested that we have more increased community engagement in this space, which I think is paid off. And I've seen it, even though, it leads to having difficult conversations, it also leads to having conversations. And the more we talk to people, I think even though they might not be always happy with their answers, but at least there's answers and there's reasons for those answers. So just wanted to thank your team and everyone, and Tegan and Helen and everyone in the team for the work that's been happening in this space. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have a seconder and a mover. So is there any other questions from the boardroom? Yes, Councillor McClintock.
Thank you. My question was more just around that bushfire overlay, and I guess some of the impacts of what that is, or our intended impacts that we were hoping to get from that. Can you explain, as a person who wanted to live in that region, or who does live in that region, what does that overlay mean for them, and what would us reviewing it be hoping to achieve through that process?
Okay. So we tend to find on a day-to-day that a high volume of the inquiries or questions are from the southern part of the region. Now, obviously, it's highly vegetated. What it currently means for a landowner is that dependent upon what area of bushfire risk you're in, it's probably more likely than not you'll need a town planning approval for a dwelling. As part of that, not only do you need to pay the council application fee and prepare the application, but you'll also need to engage a bushfire consultant to prepare a bushfire management plan. Depending upon the site and its particulars, that bushfire plan will then have actions and outcomes that you need to address. That could be sealing a driveway, it could be vegetation clearing X amount of distances, fire tanks that obviously need to be fire resistant. Now, it's not polyethylene, it's generally a concrete tank, so that's an extra cost. So I guess it's the outcomes of the approval have all the development conditions, which obviously adds to costs. Obviously, that's depending upon the level of risk you're in, but what we're hoping to achieve with the code is to look at, do we have our risk level right? Is it, do you have to do X amount of tanks or a sealed driveway? Are there other options and other scenarios that you can do if the risk is different? And do you even need an application at all? Because, for a building application, you still need a BAL, which is a bushfire assessment as well. So it's looking at, do we have our level of risk tolerance right with respect to the hazard? At the moment for high, if you're in the high area, there are quite a lot of building requirements you need to do, but maybe in the lower areas, are we able to reduce the requirements or give them options so that they don't need, I guess, a town planning approval? There's been quite a number of local governments that have reviewed their bushfire codes, obviously with the events that have happened across the state. So we are hoping to kind of harness what other councils have done as well and be a leader in that space.
Incorporate some of those safety elements rather than the legislative
and the learnings.
impacts.
Yes, yeah.
Brilliant. And I guess then my second part to that is we've done a lot of engagement through the process. It's been noted by the other councillors and it's been really incredible. What does this look like for those, particularly in our southern region? As we go forward through this, there'll be more engagement processes I'm confident of. But can you just give a look, maybe if anyone's listening in that region, what does that look like for them? How can they engage? What does that look like?
Yeah, so as Kimberly mentioned before, each of the major amendments will have a formal notification period, depending upon the type. So, for instance, the Agnes Water 1770 engagement piece, we've already engaged a lot with tourism. We've already had almost 100 submissions based on that and spent time down in the southern part. It's very likely, again, we'll be going down and spending more time in the community. So rather than being based in Gladstone, we'll go down to Agnes and we'll sit in the office and we'll speak to the community and just having, I guess, a face and a presence there. That's effectively what we're hoping to do, in addition to the social media and all the other options. But I guess it's for us, where we need to, spending more time down there to understand what the community is after, rather than being at Gladstone.
And then probably further to that, our more western and northern parts of our region, out through Raglan, up through the valley there, is there an engagement piece for them as well over this bushfire overlay?
Yeah, the intention is that the engagement that's kind of just happened for tourism will be a rinse repeat. We'll be out in the community for each area. We'll be doing it for, depending on the amendment that's being discussed at the time. But if it's deemed that we need to be in those areas because they're impacted, then that's where we should be and that's where we will be.
And they'll hear about that
and
through...
they'll hear about it through all of the conversations, the building bulletins, social media, every avenue we have to communicate it out, we will use.
Yes, and I guess that was where I was getting to with all of that, is how do they actually find out about it? Because I know some of those outer regions are really hard to connect with. They don't have socials, they don't have some of those places.
It might even be, looking at call-out lists to directly engage, direct emails, whatever way we can get there, we'll do our best to get the message out.
And there is a bulletin though that they can sign up to.
Be in the know as we grow.
Oh, there we go.
Yes.
I knew there was a name there somewhere. Yeah. Brilliant.
Good tag.
Thank you very much.
And I guess too, we've been saying to customers, if you can't come to us, we'll go to you. So however they need to speak to us, we'll find a way to get to them as well.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Matt. Really appreciate the team's work.
Thank you, Councillor McClintock. Any further questions? Yes, Councillor Patrick.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Only one question from me, and I love the plan too. Are there any major risk factors within this plan or the planning scheme that would be jeopardise the outcome at 2028-29? Do you foresee anything like that?
Mark could probably speak to this. My view of it would be, because we are not going into every one of these amendments with a preconceived idea, we are not deciding before we get there. It's genuine consultation. So it does genuinely depend on what comes back from the community and then how we then have to outwork that and what that looks like. Do you want to?
Yeah, I think probably one of the largest risks is that change in legislation or change in state policy. So if something comes out that we're unaware of, I mean, the Central Queensland Regional Plan will be coming out, and that's scheduled. So if there's a big policy shift in that, there's always risks in planning because we know things change all the time. But as part of, I guess, the roadmap, we just need to be staying across the trends. We need to be liaising with the state government like we're already doing to stay across that. There may also be, if something happens in the community, we can pivot. And I guess the idea about the roadmap is it gives you a schedule of where we're going. But if there is a change from the community or we see something, we'll just pivot because, again, we're listening, and that's the idea behind this.
Can I just say, I love what you just said. We are listening and we are working with you. So well done. Thank you.
Thank you. Any further questions, councillors? I also just want to add my thanks for attending in region to places like Agnes, to be on site and in the community, and just echo Councillor McClintock's comments around Boyne Valley and the northern areas around Mount Larkham as well. It'd be very important that we are in present, and I'm sure you will be, Matt, and I'm sure you will be, Kimberly. We have an office in Mount Larkham, a very good space to operate out of, and I'm sure the team at Yabobo, who are hosting the country music campout or the Yabobo music campout this weekend, would be very grateful to make their facility there at the Discovery Centre available for our staff to be able to do something similar in the Boyne Valley as well. But just a comment, but I know you will do your absolute best to get everywhere you can. Now, I have no further questions or comments from councillors, so I have a mover in Councillor Davis and a seconder in Councillor McClintock. No more questions? Put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried, and thank you, Kimberly and Matt. I think Kimberly will stay at the table for the next item. And the next item is G 4.3, DA 67/2025 infrastructure charge rebate request, 45 French Street, Gladstone. For those watching online, that is Cooinda Hibiscus Gardens. And I welcome Tegan McDonald to the table.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Okay.
It's only been 10 years.
This report asks Council to consider a request for an additional infrastructure charge rebate for the approved multi-dwelling and caretaker accommodation development at 45 French Street, South Gladstone, on behalf of the Shelter Collective Group. The development has already received a 50% not-for-profit variation, which reduced the adopted infrastructure charge to $172,841, and the applicant is now seeking a further rebate to reduce that remaining amount to nil. Officers have assessed the request against Council's infrastructure charge rebate scheme policy and found that it does not meet the required criteria, including the multi-dwelling is an excluded use under the policy, and that request exceeds the rebate limits already provided for. For this reason, the officer's recommendation is that the request be refused, but we're open to questions.
Thank you, Kimberly. I see Councillor Holzheimer has a question, and then Councillor Davis, but I would like to start by saying that this is a project we as a community have been wanting to see happen for a long time, and it's refurbishing existing dwellings that were there. And I know some of the seniors that lived in those buildings, like the Gladstone region raised, or community raised nearly $1 million. It was somewhere around at least $800,000, and then was given federal government grants for $1 for every $2 or $2 for every $1 raised for those facilities. So we're talking about Cooinda now, and obviously Hibiscus Gardens obviously ultimately would love to see that put to use. But I'm not sure why we would even charge any infrastructure charges. So I suppose that's a question before I go to the others, why we would charge any infrastructure charges for refurbishing existing dwellings. And then I'll throw to Councillor Holzheimer and Davis.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So the report provides some context for that. Unfortunately, the use rights for that development, both Cooinda and Hibiscus Gardens, have been completely removed by their essential demolition. Now, they weren't physically demolished, but they were essentially not retrofitted,
abandoned,
but impacted in a way that they were no longer habitable. They have been essentially, and I don't like to use this word, but it's the technical planning term, is abandoned for quite some time. And that essentially means that any use rights and any existing credits are essentially lost in that process. from a technical perspective. So that's why when we've done our calculation, as per the infrastructure charge resolution, they have the inbuilt 50% for being not-for-profit. However, they do not qualify for a full refund or rebate.
Based on the current policy.
Based on the current policy, correct.
Yeah. Yeah, no worries. And I did read in the report that they're abandoned, and I get that is the actual word, and it's probably the most appropriate word as well, because they were abandoned dwellings, but now basically been refurbished and ready to go again, and providing an amazing service to our community. But I'll throw over to Councillor Holzheimer, then Davis for further questions. Then Churchy, then Cameron.
Thank you. I think this is a tricky one in regards to the fact that I want to support and am right behind this. However, I'm also aware of our current financial position that we're in as a council. And I think that there's also space for us to maybe look at that concierge kind of service for the shelter collective. I don't know what we would do to make that happen, because I believe that there's applications and conversations coming from multiple areas about this development as well that could probably benefit from that. I actually had to write my notes for this one because I was really passionate about it, so I got everything across. So I think that this proposal aligns strongly with our advocacy and our strategic focus areas, particularly around housing, inclusion, and supporting our community in practical ways. So I don't think we're actually being asked to make exceptions like this very often, and I do understand the concerns that this decision might open the floodgates, but when I read through the submission, I don't think this is a typical request that we get. This doesn't feel like we're setting a broad precedence, because for me, it is long-term inactivity, and it's the unique circumstances that lead up to that. There is no service currently in use here. There is no benefit received from the shelter collective, and there's clear intent to deliver community value. I think this is an opportunity for us to let the community show us where their need is and how we can support them. And I really think that we should listen to this request. For me as a councillor, I want to be able to look back and say I supported something like this and feel proud that I contributed to responding to a real and growing need in our community. And based on that, I would like to recognise those unique circumstances and the real need this responds to in our community. And I would like to move option 2 with 100% rebate. And I'm really proud to support this. So thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Before I go back to questions, I have a few lined up. Is there a seconder for your recommendation? Thank you, Councillor Patrick. Now, in order, I have Councillor Davis, Councillor Churchill, Councillor Cameron, Councillor Wagner.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Yeah, I fully support the project, but I've just got one question. It's got in our information we've got here, should council decide to apply a rebate, the rebated portion will be journaled from the economic development budget to the infrastructure charge. What is that going to affect in our economic development budget?
So I'm speaking for Christy here because it is her budget as economic development. Essentially, we do budget an amount per financial year for this exact purpose. My understanding is that we have sufficient funds in the current budget for a rebate of this amount. Keep in mind, however, there is lots of rebate approvals out there that exist. So if somebody else was to come in and pay their infrastructure charges, we then draw down the difference to make the whole from that budget. So it would depend when the shelter collective come and pay their infrastructure charge by virtue of whatever happens here today, as to when those funds are spent in which budget, whether it's this financial year or next financial year. But we do always budget for rebates in both.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Churchill.
Yeah, thanks, ma'am. Thanks, ma'am, Matt. I had a lot to say, and I don't have much to say at all now, which is surprising. But just a couple of quick points was that, first and foremost, I'm happy to support the motion today from Councillor Holzheimer, and then recognising that the budget question was the most appropriate My other point is that this is a huge need and it's a growing need and needs to be done. So my pitch in actual fact, and I'm pleased that Councillor Holzheimer's moved that, because if we weren't going to go down this path, we needed to find another way to be able to do it, to help them, to be a partner in this project, to be able to offset the costs. But let's deal with the debate as it stands at the moment. Councillor Cameron and I went to the recent opening, but we've been down there on a number of occasions, and I think this is quite exciting. It'll be a great benefit. There's lots of different benefits that will come from it. But Councillor Wagner and I attended recently a national affordable housing summit. And social housing and in crisis housing is a big issue right across the nation. And some governments, in actual fact, local governments, are grappling with how they can do that to determine appropriately cost benefit, and we need to understand and appreciate our ratepayers are contributing, that our ratepayers are contributing to the social, affordable, accessible, available housing. And I believe Councillor Wagner has a report coming to the next council meeting in a couple of weeks, which may very much touch on that. But I'll leave it at that. But thank you. Happy to support the motion.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Cameron, then Councillor Patrick, Councillor McClintock.
Thank you, Mr Mayor. Always a pleasure to follow up after Councillor Churchill. And most things have been covered adequately. Look, I think one thing I want to put out to the public really is that the officers in their report for declining the offer is exactly right. It's a policy thing, and you follow the policy to the letter. We're not the big, ugly council that doesn't support these things. It's quite the opposite, as is displayed here today. So it is an out-of-policy thing that we're looking at, and that's why we're here today. I just want to get that one clear. I noticed that it's really been assessed as a greenfield site rather than a brownfield site. That's fair? And this is where the infrastructure charge comes from. If it was assessed under a brownfield scheme, how would that look?
So it would depend obviously on the existing use, but let's assume that for whatever reason the retirement facility, aged persons facility never ceased. It was literally came from one to the other, then they would get a credit for whatever that existing use was. Now, obviously Hibiscus Gardens is separate, but for the actual Kalinda units, it would be whatever that existing use right is, minus whatever the charge is. So there still may have been a difference in cost, but there definitely would have been credits if there was an existing lawful use on the site.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, in the report, it's mentioning the caretaker's unit as well. Is that on the Corinda lease site, or is that a part of the Hibiscus lease site?
It's within Corinda.
It's within Corinda.
That's my understanding.
I thought for a moment it might have been on the Hibiscus site, because just looking at the type of the construction, it would have been of the same era as Hibiscus and not necessarily Corinda. So that's pretty much safe.
Potentially, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah. Granted, you've obviously been there more recently than I have.
Yep. Okay, now look, I'm really proud of this council and the way they're adopting this, and I fully endorse the mover. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cameron. Councillor Wagner.
Okay, I know it's unusual for me to be last, but no, I think everyone has said it. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer, and the thought that went in this, and for the work she has done too in liaising. So great job. For me, it was about the implications on the budget and going outside of policy, but I think for me, I am satisfied that this is a unusual situation. I was fortunate enough, or maybe misfortunate enough, a few years ago to actually inspect that facility for another organisation for a similar project. I think this is really needed in the community. It is there. It wasn't just abandoned. What was happening down there was undescribable, and the condition of those, and it was very sad to see so many people living rough in the community. And with the impact of costs of housing, there's more and more people we're seeing living in cars and what have you, not just here, right across the nation. So I think this does go some way. The Shelter Collective are an amazing group, and I think they'll do an amazing job. Obviously, I do still get concerned about when we're doing these things, the implication on the budget. And if we do have other developers come in, that is going to push it over when we're already looking at, where are we standing? It means that there's other things that we forego if that happens. So, and as for a precedent, yes, it will set a precedent, let's face it, it will. And that's something that we're going to have to deal with. But I think that it does look like that we're all comfortable enough with that. I think for me, though, with this, if we're looking at other rebates and what have you for the Shelter Collective or others, that in our strategic priorities, we're looking at homelessness, we're looking at housing and how we might be able to make this place more affordable and more attractive for people. I heard Councillor Cameron say partnership, and I think, yeah, partnership's great, but is it time for us to be looking not just at the policy and how we are doing this? If this is a strategic priority for us, are we looking at an organisation such as the Shelter Collective as maybe the person that can be working with us in whatever capacity it is to be helping address that? And if so, do we just do these one-off rebates, or is it an organisation that we support to do that more and more strategically? That's all I have to say. Absolutely endorse this. Thank you.
Recommendation forthcoming in your report.
Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Over to you, Councillor McClintock, then the Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. Yeah, most of what I read through and wanted to know has been covered. I guess the only other clarification or the other point that is worth mentioning here is that I find it interesting that when it comes to the infrastructure charges and this development application, we treat it as if it's been abandoned for 10 odd years. Yet when it comes to the rates, we've been charging them like it's been facilitated for the last 10 odd years. So we have been collecting rates on this for the last decade or so, whilst there hasn't been any use of the facilities, which if we are going to try and find a balancing of this budget and how do we make sure that this is effective, we have been collecting some income from this facility for a number of years, which we could then utilise or I guess prioritise into this type of moment where we can now make it available for our community. I know they are two totally different budget lines, can totally understand that, but when we're talking about community understanding, them paying into a project like this and the cost to community, this facility has been paying its way for a number of years. With very, very minimal impact into our infrastructure that we can then justify ethically, I believe, as to the affordability of this moment right here, where I have not met a community member who is not supportive of this project, who is not keen to see this move forward in some capacity sooner rather than later. And I think to echo a few other comments here, really proud of the way this council has proactively been engaged with this project. I know many of us have been down there and have actually walked through the facility, had conversations with a number of the committee members, and I think you guys do get a little bit of the wrong end of the stick there sometimes when your role is to follow policy. And so to come through with a report like this makes it look like we are not supportive as a council, where that is not actually the reality of the situation and exactly why we bring it to a boardroom like this. So really, really happy to support the motion and really, really proud of the work that you guys are doing and continue to work with this organisation as we go forward. So thank you.
Thank you. Over to you, Councillor Muscat.
Councillor McClintock's still going.
Sorry, I had one last thing. I just wanted...
Okay.
I'm on a roll. Don't stop me now.
You just said I'm happy to support.
Yeah, I know.
No,
he changed his mind.
I had one other little dot point here I just skipped past on the way through, is that we also understand that housing is a state issue and that we want to continue to advocate to state, and I think this is a brilliant opportunity for state to step up and actually do some things in this community as well as far as housing.
Yeah. Thank you, Councillor McClintock, for that comment at the end. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to make a couple of comments. I'm going to vote for we need to actually, for what's on the screen. Now, I was just wondering, first of all, if we should be, I know it's in the report, but should we actually note that we're going to be covering this by the economic development budget? Would that be, we don't need to do that. I just want to make sure that people understand where this is coming from and because someone is paying for it. It's not, when we apply a rebate, it's not that the money just disappears, the cost doesn't disappear. So it's still there, someone is paying for it. So while, okay, we don't need to go back and put it into the recommendation, I think it's important to highlight that. So council will be paying for it. So now, and as such, I was just, and I guess it's not necessarily a question for our officers, but we have also supported the Shelter Collective in disposal fees in the past at a policy decision, and it was, I'm pretty sure it was unanimous, and now we're going to support them in this case. I have been to the place a number of times as well. I keep in touch with the organisation regularly, and there's no question that there is a lot of value in their activities. I just want to make sure, and I guess for the organisation to be mindful that the Gladstone Regional Council has its money from its ratepayers. So we need to thank the community and the council for the contribution that we're making to this project. So, and I'm saying that because a lot of the times, the same way as the officers are in the end of the bat stick, are saying no to things, they're only doing their job through policies that we set. We also get a lot of I guess, negativity sometimes around our charges and the way in which we do some things. And this is a perfect example to have people that are seeing the value that this council provides to the community, and that goes above and beyond just the rates, just the roads, rubbish, and all those other things that we do. So because, you know, money is not endless. So it is, again, aligned to our housing, and not just the housing strategy that we have, but also our health strategy. I have had discussions with the Shelter Collective, and there's a very clear need, well, a very clear desire to use these facilities going forward to house essential workers or different types of residents that might come here that will support the health infrastructure and health system. So, and again, we're not building anything. Also, it's very much in line with our housing and health strategy when we talk about enabling, and hopefully other levels of government will take this action into consideration. We are enabling, we're doing our part as per our strategy. So now they have to come up with the other so many $1 million that this organisation needs to complete this project. So it's not something, it does create a precedent, and while I want to see this happening, it's also difficult because we got to manage our cost, like a number of us have said today. It is also a not-for-profit organisation, so I go back to Councillor McClintock's comment about, you know, when things are no longer used. I mean, it might be in different circumstances. So the reason why we're also looking at this request in a favourable way is because they're also a not-for-profit organisation, and they're already able to get that 50% rebate. So, yeah, it is. I just wanted to put it out there that it's not a decision we make lightly, and it is, we understand the cost, and we wish the Shelter Collective the best of luck, and sending that message that GRC is supportive, GRC's ratepayers are paying for this, and the message to other levels of government that we've done a bit of enabling. Now it's time for them to come and do that bit of investing. So thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. I think everyone's had a go now, so I would like to make another comment. I'm fully supportive of the recommendation put forward by Councillor Holzheimer, but I'll just ask Mark, our acting CEO, if it's worth having an amendment to start this off to say that council apply for the 50%, like we've already given 50%, and if we apply to the state government through the Regional Activation Fund or Residential Activation Fund, sorry, for the additional 50%, which means we would be paying half, the state would be paying half, to cover the cost, and if unsuccessful, then we approve it. So it's not kicking the can down the road and not giving the Shelter Collective guarantee or a future, letting them know that we at least put in an application if it's possible. And I don't know whether infrastructure charges are something you can apply to RAF for, but it's worth potentially having a go. And then if unsuccessful, then we could, we'll continue to go with the officer's the recommendation from Councillor Holzheimer. Mark, could you just talk us through that if that's possible?
Yes, Mayor, thank you. We'll certainly have a discussion this afternoon with the Department of State Development. I think what we normally do in these situations is we would leave given the rebate is already funded, then I'm comfortable that we can resolve as is recommended here, and look to offset that funding if there was any success with the RAF discussions. But given it is already funded, I don't think we need to make it a contingent resolution.
Okay, thank you. I'm happy with that. I just sometimes you can't get state government grants if something's already started or if something's already approved. So I just want to make sure that if we approve this now, it doesn't exclude us from applying for RAF. So if it doesn't, then that's great. I think we should definitely put it in as one of our projects. I know we've got projects in Agnes Water, and I think around heading towards Tannum projects as well. But this is an option if it's possible. I just would hate for us to approve this today, and I know that from what I can hear, it's unanimous around the boardroom to approve it. I need to find out that we should have asked the state before we approved it. But if you're telling me that's not the case, I'm happy to support the recommendation as it stands.
I believe that's not the case. We can go ahead with this recommendation.
Lovely.
And we will be asking more in hope than expectation given the challenges we have with RAF.
Okay. Excellent. Well, so I don't even need to add on the end that we apply for RAF funding. It just can be taken as a given. Yeah.
I'm out to take it as a given. We'll have discussions with State Development this afternoon.
Excellent. Lovely work. Thank you, Acting CEO. I have a mover in Councillor Holzheimer and a seconder in Councillor Patrick for the alternative recommendation, which is on the screen. Any further questions or comments? No, I put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried. Thank you. Thank you, team. We'll move on to the next item on the agenda. Just bring that up. Thank you, Kimberly, and thank you, Tegan, as well. The next item on the agenda is G4.4, which is the naming of a council asset for infrastructure under the name Allen. And I'd like to move the officer's recommendation from the chair. Do I have a seconder, please? Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Is there any questions, councillors? No questions? I put the motion. All in favour? Motion is carried, and how very appropriate that we name an asset in our community after this amazing local family. Move to the next item on the agenda is G4.5, regional meetings for 2026. I'll hand over to the Acting General Manager of Finance, Governance and Risk, Tanya Wally. Thank you, Tanya.
Thank you, Mayor. This proposes 2 regional general meetings for 2026, being Ambrose on the 16th of June, to be held at the Ambrose Queensland Country Women's Association Hall, and Rosedale on the 6th of October 2026 at the Rosedale Memorial Hall. Each of these proposed regional meetings coincides with the community forum and is open for your consideration. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya. Questions, councillors?
Happy to move.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Patrick.
Okay.
No, you're all right.
Councillor Patrick, was that a question?
I had my hand up, but I'm courteous. I'll allow Councillor Patrick to go.
I was just going to move that motion, but I'm happy to either move it or second it. So,
thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Councillor Patrick as the mover, Councillor Churchill as the seconder. Is there any questions for Tanya?
Yeah, my question appropriately was just, and having gone to Rosedale previously, is probably 2 aspects. One is the technology, and the other one is probably more important is making sure that there is an official invite to the local schools to take up the opportunity to, and the community, but appropriately. I remember the Rosedale one. It was lovely to have all the children from the local school come down and listen to the robust debate from the elected members. But meeting them as well, I think, is important.
Thank you. I'm sure our team will reach out to the local schools. Of course, the CWA Hall in Ambrose is directly across the road from the school, so very appropriate. Any further questions, councillors? It's a very simple one. I'll put the motion. All in favour? The motion is carried. Thank you. We'll now move to council reports, and we do have some written council reports. And the first one, G5.1, Women of the Valley Project, a snapshot in time. Councillor Holzheimer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I feel like I'm stealing the thunder from Councillor Churchill today with talking a lot, so you got some competition, mate. So, Women of the Valley, Councillor Patrick and myself attended on the 28th of March for the exhibition. It was really a great opportunity out of councillor discretionary funds to be able to support this project. What stood out to me was the women who stepped up to share their stories. So local women stepping up for local women, and that created connection that we can't replicate just from doing programs alone. The project brought together approximately 150 people, capturing 33 stories, and it created something that will last well beyond the event itself. It was about reducing isolation, strengthening connection, and recognising people who are often quietly holding our communities together in the background. I'd really like us to consider what's next. This book for the snapshot in time for our region, I think it would be worth considering if we were to include it in our council historical collection, and then also to look at the photography that was completed and how we can display that so the wider community can experience that as well. It was absolutely amazing photography. There was four generations for one family there, which was really special as well. Lots of history for the valley captured there, and a really great experience driven by Rural Aid. So Nicole from Rural Aid and Leslie, the community nurse, and Joyce as well, so McClure, really participating, and I'm sure I've missed out other people's names as well, so apologies. A really beautiful experience and healing experience for that community, I believe. Thanks. Any questions? Or Kylie?
Through the chair. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. Mr Mayor, could I just respond to Councillor Holzheimer's requests, please? Very happy to include the book itself in our regional library system and also our social history system. And I'll ask our curator of the Gladstone Regional Art Gallery and Museum if she can reach out from a local perspective. It may not happen this year because our programs are booked in for about 12 months, but certainly could be something for the future. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you. Before we go on to the next one, Tanya, I think this has got a recommendation in there that not just we note the outcomes, it also says recognise the value of supporting community-led initiatives that strengthen connection and inclusion across our region. So that's different to our normal just noted. So do I need to move that separately then?
Yes, that I do believe that Councillor Holzheimer is seeking a resolution from Council in that regard, Mayor.
Thank you.
Also,
I'll ask
just
Councillor Holzheimer to move that.
I've just got a comment.
Back to you, Tanya.
I just wanted to let you know that Councillor Patrick had her hand up for a question, Mayor.
Yeah. Thank you. I'll come back to that, but only get a mover for this recommendation as it stands. Councillor Holzheimer, yes?
I'm happy to move, please.
And Councillor Wagner was seconding by the look of that? No? Okay, Councillor Patrick is. And over to you, Councillor Patrick, for your question.
Sorry, thank you, Mr Mayor. Mine was just a comment, it wasn't actually a question. I just wanted to say the book has had great significance, and I took the time to share the book with the Governor yesterday as well. So she was looking forward to having a read of the women in the Valley. So she was very interested in that. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Thank you, Councillor Patrick. And I view as the seconder. Is there any further questions? Is that Councillor Wagner? Yes, Councillor Wagner.
Absolutely love it, support it. But the recommendation to me, it's not... I mean, I support the recommendation that we adopt the report, but the actual... It says recognises the value of supporting. How do we do it? There's no doing in it. So I'm just a bit confused what the recommendation is asking it. Like, to me, it's not... I'd like to see what it is. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, it does. That's why I asked the question. I'm not sure how.
I think we already are. So
I think
guess
we're-
putting it formally, is that what
Yes,
you're saying?
yes,
Like,
putting
just
it,
recognising
recognising that we've supported that the work that's happened in this space through the adoption of the report, and then I believe what Kylie has supported as well with looking at how we can continue to share the book and then also to celebrate the stories and the photographs as well through that competition.
Sorry, can I then...
Should that say something different then for the recommendation?
Continue to recognise.
I'm thinking it should have in there what we are going to do, so it's documented, so it's done. Because to me, that's still recognise. Like, there's so many ways of recognising it. It's not like I want to see.
Yeah, I tend to agree. I love what you're trying to achieve, but our recommendation is to do something, and
So put it into our collection, like put in here, recognising by adding it to our collection, like the things that you want to see, or discussing further, or having a meeting, whatever it is, but putting there what it is, so then we can see down the track, did we actually achieve it? Sorry.
yeah, by including the works in our gallery collection or our library or something like that, I think makes it gives it an action.
Wiley had some good terminology.
Yeah.
That historical something.
Yeah, maybe if we just add what Kylie...
No, that's fine.
Yep.
Kylie, would Kylie be able to give us some words to add to the end of that?
Please.
Is she still there?
The action was to purchase the Women of the Valley books to add into Council's library collections.
Perfect.
And
there we go. That's it. That's all we need. Just say inclusion across our region by including the books in our library collection. And then...
Sorry, Councillor Holzheimer was talking about having some sort of future exhibition or some sort of commemoration, or, getting the photos on display. So if that's what our intent is, then let's put it in there, because then the funding for the budget will support that too.
Yeah. Is that something you're able to do, Kylie?
Yes, Mr. Mayor.
We didn't do councillor reports like I prefer to have the recommendations, a recommendation beforehand. But so yes, we can.
Yes, the second part of that, Mr. Mayor, would be to reach out to the organisers of the event for potential display either in our art gallery or library services.
Lovely. Can I have that on the screens, and then I'll just check the mover and the seconder are happy to amend it. Sorry, Tanya. Yeah. It's just different to what's there, and I agree with Councillor Wagner. I know what Councillor Holzheimer is trying to achieve, but it doesn't achieve anything. The words don't do anything. They're just lovely, but that's not what recommendations need to be.
For an exhibition at either Council's art gallery or library services.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, Councillor Holzheimer, are you happy with that amendment?
Yes, and thank you for the support with that one.
Lovely. And
Thanks.
Councillor Patrick, you're happy as a seconder?
Absolutely.
Thank you. Councillor Wagner, I'm assuming you're happy with that now, and I agree with you. No, all good. Any further questions or comments, councillors? No, I'll put the motion now. All in favour? Motion is carried. We'll move on to the next councillor report, which is Councillor Holzheimer again. Back to you.
Ta-da! I know, right? So I recently went to, so we have LawMac and we meet 3 times a year. This time LawMac is Local Area Waste Management Committee. And so this time we actually paired up with the Waste Symposium in Brisbane, and we were able to do some site tours down there that are a little bit different. Traditionally, LawMac, Gladstone is one of the most southern regions as part of the LawMac group. So we have our own different unique challenges, being regional remote communities in this space as well. So for the Waste Symposium, though, in Brisbane, we had the opportunity to have a look at some waste to energy facilities, looking at how they're making those scalable products as well, and some other points of difference between us and the southeast corner as well. So it was a really good opportunity for us to learn, to look at what's happening in the future, and also about some of the systems that other areas are put in place. We had one statement that came out of it that was sort like a Swede. So in Sweden, rather than actually having a transfer station, they will have small hubs within a certain, let's say 6,000 people or a particular suburb, and people don't actually have they don't have a rubbish bin like we do as well that's collected. They go and they sort through their waste and put it in those different streams, and then it's collected from there as well. And the process that they have taken has been, probably a 20-year process to educate, create the community value and how they engage with recycling, reuse of products and sorting. So sorting like a Swede was definitely one of the key features as well that we had. With gloves. Well, if it's your own waste and you're doing it well as well. Yeah, but that was who the speaker was as well for the symposium. Yeah, it's a great concept. And then looking at how nationally we sit at, rather than just at a state, for how we actually look at waste management and how standardising some of those processes. So some communities, they might actually have a different coloured bin. So some of that bin harmonisation programs that we're running through the state, but actually at a national level, so that there can be education completed at that national level for people. I thought it was really interesting, the energy to transition and how we can actually support that through waste and biogases that are created. So it's not just about solar and wind. There's actually opportunities for, hydrogen or other biofuels as well to be developed. I hope
Thank you.
the report says a lot, but it was a really great opportunity, and we're looking at next year partnering with the Waste Symposium as well as one of the LawMac meetings, so that we can all come together for a whole state perspective as well. Thanks.
That's right. Thank you, Councillor Holzheimer. The motion is that the report be received. Can I get a mover for that, please? Thank you, Councillor Wagner. Second, Councillor Churchill. All in favour? Motion's carried. Is there any other further councillor reports, verbal reports? I think Councillor Churchill, yes.
No, thanks, Mayor Matt. I had the fortunate pleasure to attend on your behalf and the Gladstone Regional Council, which was the Varudu Festival, which is the Gladstone Australian Sri Lankan Association annual festival. And predominantly it was held down at the Glen Cricket Club and with the Honourable local member Glenn Butcher. And we thank Chatu and Sarge, and Sarge actually works for the Gladstone Regional Council as well. but it was a vibrant cultural festival celebrated, and it's celebrated in April every year, marking the beginning of a new year. So there was a good gathering of many people from not only Sri Lanka but the Broaden community as well. So it was a community, family and traditional practices and the new beginning of the year. And Glenn and I, two Glens, two Glens together, we had the opportunity to participate in some of the various traditional activities and also the lighting of the traditional lamp. But they have been very, very proactive to blend some of our, I suppose, our Australian type activities together as part of a joint multicultural approach. And it was wonderful that other families had come from other regions, in particular Rockhampton, because Gladstone and Rockhampton Australian Sri Lankan Association have a very, very strong alignment. But anyway, look, all in all, that was basically it. But it was a great day, and we thank them everything for what they do in our multicultural diversity of the region. Thank you.
Yeah. Do we have any further councillor verbal reports? No further reports. We have no urgent business, no notices of motion, and no confidential items. So I'll declare the meeting closed at 10:25 a.m. Thank you for your attendance.